Please be seated. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Our first session for the conference is titled The Challenge of Sectarianism. Sectarianism is one of the most divisive issues that our region has been suffering from for a long time. It's interesting that when I was reading one of the strategists, American strategists, and they were saying he was advising what should American strategy be, and he's saying that after 9/11, the US had different options. One was to really invade the Muslim world from Morocco to Indonesia, as he put it, but that would have taken too much resources that they didn't have, and even after the second attempt, they were not able to go beyond. And the second option was to withdraw completely, and he said that was not really an option. And the third was that they should exploit fault lines that exist within their enemies. And he was considering the Muslim world as the enemy of Islam at the moment. And he said that the biggest fault line, the obvious one, is sectarianism, Taifiyya. And he said, of course, particularly the Shia-Sunni divide. And he was advising that they should exploit this and try to promote it. There's a lot to say, but I'm going to stop here because we will have three distinguished speakers that will talk about this topic, sectarianism. Our moderator is also a distinguished person himself, the chairman of our Political Science and International Relations Department, Professor Omer Caha. Professor Caha, as I said, has a distinguished career in academia. Now he is the chairman of the department, and he has many books to his credit, some in English, some in Turkish, such as Women and Civil Society in Turkey, Women's Movements in a Muslim Society, Civil Society and the State, as well as Women and Politics, Class Differences in Feminism, as many as others as well. I'm going to ask Dr. Caha to come to the podium to introduce our speakers. I will ask our speakers to come to the podium: Dr. Ahmad Mousalli from the American University of Beirut, Dr. Nader Hashemi from the University of Denver, and Dr. Mehmet Buyukkara from Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. Please welcome our speakers.
Good morning to everybody. It's a very great pleasure for me to welcome all of you to the first session of the day. So we have a very important issue, which is one of the topics of the conference, sectarianism in the Muslim world. We have three distinguished speakers and very important really specialists on this issue. Professor Dr. Ahmad Mousalli from American University of Beirut, Lebanon. He has a number of prizes because of his studies on Islamic sciences and diverse branches of social sciences and political sciences. Professor Mousalli has dozens of publications on such issues as religious denominations, Islamic movements, Islam and politics, Islamic fundamentalism. He's really very important specialist on what happens in the Middle East on the basis of religion and religious sects. The title of his presentation here today is Politics and Religion, Understanding the Sunni-Shiite Divide. And our second speaker is Professor Dr. Nader Hashemi from the University of Denver, USA. He is currently the director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver. He received his PhD from the Department of Political Science at the University of Toronto. He is interested in such issues as religion and democracy, secularism, Middle East and Islamic politics, religion and politics, etc. And the title of his presentation here is The Authoritarian Roots of Sectarianism in the Middle East Today. And our third speaker is distinguished Professor Dr. Mehmet Ali Buyukkara from Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University, Turkey. He received his PhD in Islamic and Middle Eastern Studies from the University of Edinburgh. His particular research areas include such issues as Shiism, Salafism, contemporary Islamic movements, relationship between politics and religion in Islam, Middle East, etc., etc. And the topic of his presentation today is introducing a theoretical paradigm for interdenominational harmony and peace. So we have 20 minutes for each speaker. So shall we start with you, Dr. Ahmad Mousalli? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be here, of course, and I hate to speak in the morning, but Dr. Ariel placed me where I hate to be, so I have to follow as an Arab an authoritarian power. Okay, we'll do it. Yesterday, speakers in the panel on legacy of colonialism, liberalism, and modernity, I think is kind of introduction to what I want to talk about. And what I want to do is to link what have been said and expand a little bit on it, and then come down to the sectarian divide, or the ethnic and sectarian divide, and all kinds of divides that we have in the Muslim world, and in particularly we are talking today in the Arab world. Remember that the issue of globalization has become a very important issue, and the way I want to deal with it here is not to speak about spend the time on it. I'm assuming, of course, all of you know it, or at least have an idea of what it is. But for the sake of this discussion, globalization has created two levels that are contradictory in terms of dealing with politics, economics, and every other aspect of life. Religion, society, women's rights, human rights, gays' rights, all kinds of rights. On one level, we see the transnational forces getting bigger and bigger. Example is the economic power, the manipulation of the resources, whether it's oil or raw material and so on, being cannibalized and focused and concentrated in fewer hands and fewer hands, and technology, all sorts of transnational forces. These, in one way or another, took away or taking from or chipping away from the power of the state itself. The role played by the state historically, especially after the rise of the nationalist power that was discussed yesterday, the nation state, which is a concept rather than a reality actually, is being eroded at the same time. Why? Because a lot of the powers embodied in the nation state we have, even in Europe, I mean, you look at places like Spain or Italy or Ireland or other places, you see the state itself is eroding as a power of organization as well as repressive power. You see a lot of people falling down to their fundamental views about life, economy, distribution of wealth, the classes, and so on. On the other hand, so you have these transnational forces that are taking away the economic power of the state. Look, example, at oil. Of course, there are oils here and there and so on, but the power that focuses and controls it is one power, superpower, that manipulates all of these states. Saudi Arabia, for instance, is a keeper of the oil rather than the owner of the oil. The real owner, we know who it is. It is the industrial military complex that is expanding all over the world. The military also for the same way. Look at the Arab world today. Most of the militaries are extension of American armies rather than being nationalist armies. We don't have any more nationalist armies. They are destroyed in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, in Yemen, in Egypt, in Morocco. Everywhere you look, they are being destroyed. On the same time, what this, and one more point, the social benefits that people used to get are getting less and less because the globalists want to increase their power more, and their wealth more and more. And what do we see? We see the concentration of wealth in fewer hands, whether in the West or in the East. We see the eroding of the classes as well. Though still it's gonna come back, class conflict and so on, but what we see that even at that level, the wealth, let's say take the American, okay, I don't wanna take one in the Middle East, I'll do it later. In the US, the wealth is concentrated in fewer hands, to a point where really most Americans do not own what they have. Most of them live on loans, very much like us today. We are worse, of course, given our political structure and so on. So this is what I want to this is why in Greece or Spain and so on, what do you see? Conflicts of economic nature, because the state cannot anymore provide what it used to provide in terms of health, retirement, and so on. Russia wants to increase the age of retirement because they cannot supplement anymore that high number of people as retired, and this will happen in many other places. In Lebanon, we are increasing, so I'm taking America and Lebanon. I mean, Lebanon is a very small country, but also we have the same structure. We have a few who are part of the globalized force and they enjoy wealth and they own Lebanon in one way or another. The rest of the people are down. Take Egypt. The wealth of Egypt is now controlled by a small group. This created vacuum with the state and pushed people to go down to their primordial and sectarian and ethnic conflict in order to protect themselves. What I want to say, and that's my point, is sectarianism does not come from void. It has a socio-political, complex environment that produced and triggered that Iran has been Shia for 500 years. It used to be Sunni, then it came Shia, Egypt was Shia, came Sunni, and so on. They extend and change role because of political intrigues and development. Iran was accepted by Saudi Arabia. It was Shia, it was not Sunni. It was accepted by the West. Why? Because it was a tool of the West of control of the Middle East. When it stopped being part of the controlling tools, the whole world turned against it, including the Arab world, and Saddam Hussein was asked to open up a war that lasted for 8 years, if I remember correctly, and destroyed in a way both Iraq and Iran. The same is happening now. Any force that is going to rise up to stand against these globalized forces, okay, we are going to be immersed in conflicts within each other. This is when the idea, if you remember, this was going on when suddenly 9/11 happened. And then they have to come to grip with what we to do with Islam. What kind of Islam we want, not what we want, what the Western powers want, and I'm not talking about Western people, I'm talking about powers. What they wanted, and they wanted is Islam that could be manipulated in order to prevent the rise of powers that stand up against Western hegemony and dominance. So the narrative that was produced, was used, was the narrative of the Muslim Brotherhood in one way. Why? Because it's not anti-capitalist, it accepts capitalism, it accepts the rise of wealth, the concentration of wealth, and so forth and so on. The problem was that certain issues should be changed. One of them, its view about the Arab-Israeli conflict, Palestine. They should give up Palestine. This is a price for an Islamic movement, if it wants to survive, is to give up Palestine. Look at the Wahhabis and their view of Palestine. Now they are good buddies with Israelis, you know, and they working with a lot of Gulf states, over the table, under the table, beyond the table, whatever, in the box, outside the box, the way you want it. Look at Emirates, look at other states. So this discourse by the Muslim Brotherhood turned into a neoliberal discourse. And we all participated in doing it. I participated in doing it. I'm not a Muslim Brotherhood, by the way, but I conceptualized for the Muslim Brotherhood a whole book on democracy, human rights, and pluralism, and how these could be brought out from within the tradition itself, rather from accepting the imposition of the West on Islam. Within this context, the energizing of sectarianism took place. Any force, although I know a lot of people hate a lot of regimes, and you are right, most probably, in doing this. Whether Saddam Hussein regime, or Assad regime, or Mubarak regime, or anything. But was central to reduce the power of Islam, to make it clash within itself. Sunni-Sunni divide is worse than the Sunni-Shia divide. We have so many Sunni, quote-unquote, divides. The clash between the Brotherhood and the Wahhabis is worse than the clash between the Sunnis and the Shia, in terms of its impact on the current politics, on the future of the region, and on the future of Islam itself and how it is conceived. Both of them, I don't know why I'm wearing eyeglasses, we try to find a common denominator among Muslims. Of course, it does exist. There are basics, there are dogmas, there are rituals, there are histories, there are so many things that combine and can be the components of unity, among the Muslims, Sunni and Shia, and Sunni together as well. The division and the energizing or empowerment of sectarianism is very much like empowerment of ethnicity. Kurdish, Arab, Persian, Persian, Berber, Arab, and so on. Again, this is included in the sectarian divide. Most of the Kurds are Sunnis. Most of them, a few are Shia, but most of them. But they are treated like they are not Sunnis, and they don't belong to the area at the same time. The Berbers are the same, other forces in Egypt, Christian in Egypt treated differently, and so forth. What I'm saying, that divide itself serves a political ambition, which is the prevention of the rise of anti-imperialist, anti-globalist, in the sense I talked about, anti-globalist forces. However, the globalist forces, in fact, created the transnational Islamic movement at the same time. We created a virtual ummah, not a real ummah. The real ummah, you and me, and what we do. They created a virtual ummah. You find it on the internet. Most of the communication of these groups, Daesh, ISIS, and so forth, Al-Qaeda, and all of the nice people, soft people, light-handed people, all of them have their own virtual world and the right ummah. Okay? And the fault lines, therefore, were created between Sunni and Sunni, Shia and Shia, Sunni and Shia, Arab and Kurds, Kurds and Persian. This is our situation now. Today, if Iran says, I accept that Palestine is an Israeli state, this all will end. It will end. Hamas will end. Jihad will end. Hezbollah will end. All of these groups. The problem with this group, not that they are Shia. The problem with this, and I know some of you don't like it, I'm not Shia, so I'm not defending them. So the problem with these people is that they are fighting the historical imperialist implant in the Arab world, and they are fighting the globalist controlling paradigm that is created right now and has been created, and at certain point seems to be successful. But fortunately we have Trump. I know a lot of you may not like him. Well, most of us don't like him, but what's good about him is going back to rugged capitalism and imperialism. Okay. He gave me 15 minutes extra, he likes it so much. Trump is good. Why is he good? Because he's working against the transnational forces and trying to locate or to Americanize and see the interest of Americans before the interest of any globalized force. This will come at the expense of the expansion of the globalization in the sense I spoke about at the beginning of the discussion. He doesn't care about Europe, he doesn't care about China, he doesn't care about Russia. He thinks he can smash any state he wants, he can sanction anyone he wants, even his allies. Now it comes to Saudi Arabia, I doubt he will do anything serious, but he needs money, creates jobs, create wealth of the United States. At the same time, he will slap softly the hand of the Crown Prince. This is it. It will be worked out with other countries. So I just read before I came here the latest story that will be spread, that while Jamal Khashoggi went in, he had a heart attack. And the people inside were horrified and did not know what to do with him, so they hate him. You will find 2 days from now that this is a true story that will be propagated by a lot of official media. To sum up, following authoritarian shares as well, any power, it's the nature of power to be authoritarian. I mean, you have one that gives, one that takes. the one that gives has the power. He doesn't give me anything. But therefore, the division, I want to tell you, is rather, the sectarian division is rather used politically, and it is not a real division among Muslims. I know there are differences on certain issues, about mostly political issues, that with time took some dogma and so forth. But originally, all conflicts within Islam started as political conflict rather than dogmatic conflict or real conflict about what Islam is. The Sunni political theories historically are based on the interest of the state. This is why the Sunni could not develop an opposition theory, except now in modern time, like me and Luay work on this together. Okay. Or anti-imperialism. Me and Francois work on it. Francois, everyone he meets dies. So he said yesterday, you are the third one, you will die. I hope not. I'm not going to the Lebanese embassy, so